So, if that chat with Scott Mensel has put you in the mood for motorsport, it certainly has with me. We're lucky because we've got the experts in. So we have Adam Smalley, GT3 extraordinaire. We have Pete Dignan. We also have Ross over here from Motorsport UK. We're going to talk about getting into motorsport because we know how to, we see what the professionals do. We always think, how on earth do I get involved? We might get put off by the costs or maybe even just a lack of talent or not knowing if you've got it. So I thought we could have a chat and figure out what might be the ways we could start off and just get involved. So we're going to start off with you, Adam, as the professional here, just in case if anyone wants to really go and take this as a serious profession. How did you start off? What was your starting point to getting where you are now?
So it's quite a good story really. So when I was 8 years old, my dad went on a stag do. On that stag do, he went go-karting. Absolutely loved it, came home and bought one, and then that was the most expensive mistake of his life because I jumped in it and absolutely loved it. And it started off as a hobby and soon progressed into sort of like father and son go-karting. And before we knew it, we were spending 40, I think one year we did 46 weekends out the year in the motorhome, just racing all across the UK. Got picked up by a team to race in the British Championships. That soon progressed into the European Championships. And when I was 15, I was lucky enough to win the Ginetta Junior Scholarship. And that was my first sort of real into car racing. From there, won my first British Championship when I was 18, or 17, the Ginetta Juniors. Progressed up Ginetta's ladders, and for those that don't know, Ginetta's an English car manufacturer, produces lots of different race cars.
We had one earlier when we did our last chat, so yeah, we had the Ginetta Junior on, crazy cars.
Yeah, very crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, progressed up their ladder, won the GT4 Championship, and then I was fortunate enough to enter the Porsche Junior Shootout. So back at the end of 2021, entered that. Went all through Porsche's sort of selection process and was fortunate enough to win it. So that gave me the status as Porsche Junior for 2 years. Off the back of that, got really, really fortunate with several sponsors and partners along the way. So I'm fortunate to be here with Car Finance 24/7 today. And for those that haven't seen my race cars over in the hangar, and there's a simulator in there as well, so if you fancy beating me, you can give it a go.
It is incredible because it's a 720S GT3, isn't it? You've actually had a really awesome year in British GT this year. Just tell us about your season so far and how it's gone.
So first season British GT, it's going really well. I'm in the Silver Am Championship, which we managed to win back at Snetterton a few weeks ago. We've still got 2 rounds to go and we're in the hunt for the overall title. So that's going great, and also paired with British GT, I'm also competing in GT World Challenge, which for those that don't know is a European series. 67 cars on the grid, with some of, well, if not the world's best drivers. So it's a very, very challenging championship. Recently I've just done the 24 hours of Spa, which was definitely a baptism of fire. Very, very difficult, and driving in the rain at night, doing a triple stint was definitely eye-opening. But yeah, it's a great season, absolutely loving it so far, and looking forward to hopefully rounding it off.
You've just been crowned champion as well of your class, right?
Yeah, another trophy to add to it. So a massive thank you to everyone at Duckham's Auto Racing for a great season.
Nice to get the sponsors in. So I'd love to actually go back to your karting days, because I think what might be quite difficult is, let's say if we've got some young kids out here who want to start karting, or if you've got parents who want to get their kids into karting, how do you start off with going about getting a kart, and what do parents have to kind of look out for when racing? Is it how many sets of tyres you have to bring to a circuit, and how do you run the kart basically through the series?
So I think it's changed quite a lot now, to be honest, compared to when I was doing it. When I was racing sort of 13 years ago, now 14 years ago in karting, it was a lot cheaper than what it is now. But it is still doable. I think it does get a little bit blown out of proportion financially, but you don't have to go and spend that crazy kind of money to progress up the ladder. I think karting is the grassroots of the sport, and that's where you learn your racecraft, you learn what it takes to be a racing driver, and you learn sort of all your basic skills to progress from go-karting into either single-seaters or GT racing. But that's where the base sort of skills are learned to progress from there. I'm sort of very, very fortunate that I got selected very, very early on to race in the British Championships and European Championships, which furthered my career in those early days.
So when you say you get selected, is that because there are professional karting teams out there, aren't they? So did you get talent scouted? Do you have to kind of approach them as sponsors? what's the process of getting into one of those teams?
A lot of it is pay as you go now, unfortunately. Yeah, I did get selected it was by chance to a certain extent, just sort of more right place, right time to put myself in that position to get picked up. But to be honest, if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't be where I am today. But I think even going to your local sort of team sport karting event and learning the ropes is still valuable. You don't have to be at the very spending hundreds of thousands of pounds go-karting to put your name out there. You can learn that in the sort of very early stages and then move from there into car racing.
And that's what's quite interesting is, a lot of people who think, I've got to go into karting and then I'll get into Formula One, but that's not necessarily the case. It's a bit of a double-edged sword of where, yes, you can use it to get into GT racing, but GT racing now is so competitive that you have to have that upbringing of being successful on the kart track starting from a young age. So at what point did you make that transition from where you go, I want to make GTs my priority over, say, single-seater racing?
I think when I was 10 or 12 years old and my dad told me he wasn't a multimillionaire, I think I soon realised that the F1 dream was unachievable. I grew up playing on the Xbox every single morning with Guan Yu Zhou, the Chinese F1 driver, so we would play the Xbox every morning, raced against the likes of Lando in karting. So I know those guys very well, but it's just not really achievable these days. Unless you've got tens of millions or hundreds of millions to go down the Formula One route, I always knew I was never going to make it. So, and no matter how talented you are, unfortunately it's the way the sport is, you do need that financial backing. So I think very early on I realised that and thought, okay, well, the goal was to make a career out of being a GT driver, and I got very fortunate. Bumped into the right people at the right time. Met with Chris, my manager, who's helped me massively over the past few years. Pull these partnerships together, which has made my dream a reality. And I'm looking to continue that over the next few years to see how far we can get and hopefully achieve my dream of competing at 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Oh yeah, we're behind you on that. Now, hello Pete. You are. I don't want to say that you're not a professional driver because I feel like I might get sacked. So we're here, you're representing our semi-pro category today.
I'd like to say gentleman driver.
Gentleman driver, sure, gentleman driver or whatever. So tell us about how you got into motorsport, because as far as I'm aware, sort of listening to your stories, you didn't start off in karting.
No, so I'm probably the opposite end now, this professional side. So I started racing probably when I was 16, 17. I did a few karts when I was 16, 17, and there were sort of charity events that were on, that were sort of being organised. But really it was in sprint and hill climbing, and my dad was racing sprint and hill climbing. He was a rally driver in the 70s, and unfortunately in his class he didn't have enough people turning up in the class, so he was getting half points, so he needed someone else to beat. So who better to beat than your son, really? So he put me in one of the cars to start me beating them, but that gave me the bug to do it. And all the people who now run the teams that the pros are in were sort of racing in that sort of era as I came up through racing around that time. So I'd probably say I'm the opposite spectrum. I'm trying to do it as cheap as possible and doing motorsport as cheaply as you can now. I got 4 kids, I had to stop the professional dream, and I'm sure there's lots of people here who still like to race and get into racing as much as possible. So at the moment I race Enduro KA racing, which is as slow as it sounds, but it's still a really hard discipline.
It's fiercely competitive, because we've been talking about some of the, you think it's just a stock Ford KA that's been stripped out, rod cage, liveried up, and that's it, but there's a lot more to it than that, isn't it? People find just the smallest ways to gain an advantage over the competition.
Yeah, I think when you run slower cars, momentum is so key. We learn that in karting when the youngsters do it. But in Enduro KA, you're competing against Bob, who's just got mates with the garages. It's not expensive to get in. You go and get Enduro KA off Copart or somewhere else, buy it for 600, 500 quid. You can put one together for $4.5 grand between 4 mates and go racing for a season. The racing season will probably cost you 17,000 if you do the whole season, 18,000 depending on accidents. Between 4, 5, 6 mates, it's not hugely expensive for motorsport. And this year we did 24-hour race in Anglesey. So we're not driving in the rain in Nürburgring in 24 hours, but you are going around Anglesey in the rain.
It's not floodlit, is it, Anglesey?
It's not floodlit. It's not. They put little cat's eyes on to try and tell you where the corners are. But it's great fun, and I think and that level of motorsport still gets the professionals in. You know, like racing Nick Tandy for 20 laps at Brands Hatch once because he's a Le Mans winner. Do you fancy having a go in Enduro KA? We've got British touring car drivers driving it, and someone who fixes your car at the garage. It's an amazing way to get into motorsport really at a young age.
Would you ever want to do it, Adam? Enduro KA?
It's just sold it to me.
You can enter our team.
Yeah, we're always desperate for someone who can actually, like pedal as quickly as Pete can. Not to sound Enduro. But so Enduro KA is the thing at the moment, but there's been all sorts of disciplines that you've competed in. Is Enduro KA been the kind of the most accessible for you, or kind of what's been the one that's kind of really kind of roped you in that's really not broken the bank?
I've done classic racing. Sprint and hill climb's a really good way to start. It is cheap, and we'll have arguments with people about cost per mile on a track. And a sprint and a hill climb, especially if you go and do the beginner series, you're going up a side of a dam at Scammerdon in the middle of sort of Manchester moors, and you're paying 80 quid, but the track's only 12 seconds long, kind of stuff. You go, well, that seems like per money, it's not as great as some other sports, but I think it's a really good way to start if you haven't gone through that karting discipline, and it's good fun. Circuit racing is great, but you've got other people to crash into. Rallying is brilliant too. We do historic rallying as well, and that's great because we've had events here at this Bista around the outside into the culverts and spinning around. So I think there's so many different disciplines that I've done through the years. All of it's really enjoyable, and the reason I enjoy Enduro KA at the moment is most modern motorsports, apart from maybe being co-driver navigator, is a very solo sport against other people. You have your team to support you below, but to race with other people, with your mates, and that's sharing that success, that's been sort of the highlight of doing it, why I've stayed in it for 4 or 5 years or so.
It's really, unless you get to a point of where you're the owner of a multi-billion-dollar company, it's the closest we can get really to driving at Le Mans without actually driving Le Mans cars or at Le Mans speeds. But even then, there's still kind of you've got to adapt the cars, you've got to get them race ready, which brings me on to Ross. Hello, Ross.
Hello, how's it going?
Sorry for kind of neglecting you a little bit, but we're now on to the MS UK side of things. Next to you is something called Street Cars, a new initiative by Motorsport UK. And I think the idea is basically to bring the cost of entry down to as low as possible. So tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so the idea behind Streetcar is another accessible route into motorsport, so you don't need hundreds of thousands of pounds to get started. In theory, you just need your everyday road car that's insured and taxed, and you just turn up to the event where you're going to go and where you want to do. And from there, you get a free license from us as well to go compete, so there's no cost there, no safety equipment in the car, you just arrive and drive kind of style, and away you go. There's 12 different disciplines you can do, so from auto solos and auto testers and up to cross-country sort of disciplines. So you don't have to stick to a mini, you can go into your 4x4s, do all kinds of wonderful stuff.
And is there, in that side, does it depend on the discipline, but can you literally bring anything that you've got, providing that it is MOT'd and, not falling into
Yeah,
this?
provided it's road legal, it's taxed, it's insured, yeah, you can get going from there, really. One of the good features about it is kids from the age of 14 can actually get behind the wheel and give it a go once you're on site, you're signed in. So you'd need your parent or guardian to drive the car there as such, and then you can sign on and actually get behind the wheel and give it a go yourself.
It's just brilliant. So how does somebody kind of get involved in something like that? Where would they go to, if they were to go home right now and they go, I want to start getting racing in some sort, what would they do?
Yeah, best way to do it is either call us in the office or find one of our emails and send us that way. LinkedIn, I'm big on LinkedIn, so you're always welcome to connect with me and I can always guide you through the process. Failing that, on the 8th of September, we actually have a street car festival here on site where you can come and do a bit of competing, have some passenger rides, and just try the different disciplines for yourself before you actually commit to anything. So you're looking at about £20 to £40 for the whole day, but you get a full day of motorsports.
Doesn't get much better than that. Now I'm aware that kind of a lot of what we've talked about is kind of the, we've done the high professional side, we've done the grassroots stuff, but motorsport is still quite a male-dominated sport. But Pete, you've been kind of looking into F1 Academy recently, which kind of tries to bring more women into motorsports. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I've got 2 daughters, and obviously Dad, who's competitive, wants to bring some of my children into motorsports. I've got two sons as well, but they don't seem as keen in cars as daughters do. So I've encouraged my daughter to go in. She's 10 years old, and Motorsport UK have been working with F1 Academy to come up with a way of trying to get more women into motorsport. And that's across all disciplines, not just driving, but as engineering or as part of teams across the board. So I entered my daughter into F1 Academy. They do sessions at Team Sport Karting around the country. They're really cheap. And the idea is that get young girls together from the ages 8 to 12 and go through a sort of morning with fun activities from reaction timing but also timing the cars and just sort of train them through that whole experience. And then after that day they're invited back to do a 6-week course with professional instructors from Motorsport UK, just girls only. They compete against each other, and then from that they get selected to go into the various levels of the academy at Team Sport. And that then puts them in boys, and boys unfortunately love barging into people and crashing into them. Girls a little bit more polite and after a year in the corners. So that then gets them into sort of more competitive motorsport. And the idea is that they can then qualify for the British Indoor Kart Championship. So my daughter's currently qualifying for the British Indoor Kart Championships. And from a cost point of view, we're in hire karts. It's costing me £25 a session for her to be there. She sets 3 average laps over the time, and then hopefully she gets into the local, wins that, goes to regionals, wins that, gets to nationals, and then from nationals you get support, and Motorsport UK are working on what the support package is for those young girls coming through. And what's really good is if you look at the top 20 even at my local kart centre, 7 of them are girls now, and I don't think that was the chance before, so they're really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's such a fantastic initiative, and kind of what's the absolute first stepping stone in that? How could someone get involved right now if they wanted to?
So best way is just Google F1 Academy, and you'll get the website up on that, or there is an article we wrote on PistonHeads about it, so search for that as well, and that will show you all the links.
Nice and simple. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, gents. I think we're going to just end on the last thing is if people did want to get into professional racing and they have deep enough pockets, and they need to be deep, there's still a route in, isn't there, Adam, of the Pro-Am kind of driver lineup. So in British GT, you actually form part of a Pro-Am driver lineup, correct?
Yeah, so the way British GT works in the top class, which is GT3, is you have to be a Pro and an Am. So I'm classed as the Pro. Every car has to have an amateur driver in. So that amateur driver is, it goes off either experience, so someone that's very, very new to the sport, or off like age, for example. So once you get over the age of 50, you then automatically classified as an AM driver. But these people get into the sports just because they love and they have the passion for the sport. So they typically are your older, richer gentlemen that want to go racing, and then employ people like myself as a pro. So if there's anyone out here who fancies going racing, give me a call.
Great way to get involved in Le Mans as well. So there's everybody has a way of getting into motorsport. So really, there's no excuse. Go home, jump onto MS UK. There's also the MS UK HQ here as well. So if you go down right to the bottom of the site, past the PistonHeads stand, turn left, you've got MS UK. People can come and chat to you there, right, to get in?
Yes, so we're located between Heroes and Haggerty. If you want to come down as well, we've got some F1 academy things that you were just talking about, so we can hand out some bits as well. So come and say hi.
Great stuff. Right, everybody, get out there, get racing. Thank you, gents, for talking to us. And yeah, back here in 10 minutes for a brown Volkswagen Passat. You really don't want to miss this one.
Cheers.